Welcome to Set Free If You Want to Be. I'm Dr. Reba, the therapist and author of The Covenant Connection, Your Best Marriage Now. Um, I wrote this book back in 2012. Yeah, I wrote in 2012. And the book is intended to help improve relationships and marriages and help you and family dynamics to help you have a good relationship with your significant other and in your marriage. I'm going to talk about today because this ministry, the Holy Spirit put in my heart to talk about what I've been seeing in practice, counseling married couples and things that's going on. I'm a Christian and I'm a pastor, but I'm going to be talking about some disorders in sexual addiction, hypersexuality, and compulsive sexual disorders. I don't think you can get healed or be delivered or really move forward into having a healthy sex life or life without understanding, because I love the scripture, and excuse my voice, with all that get an understanding. I think it's important and crucial. I think when you understand something, you can better cope with it, you can better deal with it, and you can better work on finding a problem and solutions to that. So I want to talk about that today. Right? Sexual addiction. What I'm going to give some definitions of what it is to help you understand what it is, so you know if you have it and how we can work to deal with it. All right. Sexual addiction is also known as impulsive sexual behaviors or hypersexuality. This is a condition I studied in graduate school, sexual addiction, um, because I knew if I was going to be a marriage and family, and I was going to be I'm an addiction therapist with an MFT, marriage and family therapy. I knew that sexual disorders were going to be very relative in relationships, and so I kind of indulged into that a little bit. I did not ascertain a certificate in sexual addiction, but I do have the knowledge, and I've written a book about how sexual addictions and disorders can affect a relationship and a marriage and a family. The addiction can have detrimental effects on your life, your health, your relationship, your career, and your overall well-being. When you think about any kind of disorder, while sexual addiction is the most common term, we may refer to as problematic sexual behavior, sexual compulsivity, or sexual impulsivity. The Bible says if you look at a woman long enough, you've already committed adultery. So, and I'll use some biblical terms in between here. But when it comes to sexual addiction, it's important to note that the activities involved, what that involves. I'm going to give a definition for these terms to help you understand if you're doing them, what they are, and then working on some conditions and some things to help you, because our ministry is set free if you want to be of any kind of sexual addiction and sexual disorder. We that's what we desire to do, is to see you whole. But sexual addiction involves masturbation, pornography, phone sex, cyber sex, and multiple partners, and they let's see. And so it is intent to which the thoughts and behaviors consume a person's life. So you have consistent thoughts of impulsive thoughts of sexual ideologies or sexual thoughts, and they become overwhelming, and unfortunately they start negatively impacting your relationship and your marriage, because that's all you're thinking about is on a daily function, which could indicate, if you have the compulsivity, if you have the desire to continue to think about that part of a sex addiction, which I indicate: masturbation, pornography, phone sex, cyber sex, and multiple partners. Therefore, you very well could have a sex addiction. All right, so similar addictions and sex addictions are intense. They are cravings. You desire and you crave this sexual fulfillment, and it consumes you. It consumes you. The desire for sex can be linked to a craving of individual, just as it is an addiction to substance abuse. And I'm an addiction therapist, so you can be just as addicted to sex as you are to alcohol and drugs. It's a constant battle of the mind and understanding um, what is the root cause of that, and we're going to talk about that. I meant to get those notes for that, but I'll talk about that later. Unfortunately, with sex addictions, despite the negative consequences that may arise from engaging in them, these behaviors, individuals with sex addictions often think that they they can handle them by themselves, and unfortunately, they need a therapist or somebody to guide them through and to help set them free from whatever sexual addiction, whatever sexual bondage that they find themselves in. You need another person to help you. It's a challenge to try to do to be free of any kind of sexual addiction or impulsivity without some a therapist or counselor or pastoral counselor or somebody to help you in that process of understanding the root cause of it, and helping you to live free from it. And this the prevalence of a sexual addiction in America is between 3 to 10% as compared to men. The average sexual addiction age begins at the age 18. I've seen some research by I think Sadler, a 2003 article that I read, and it indicated that 70% of 9 to 16% of men that have sexual addictions or paraphilias have been molested, and the research showed now that 28% of women have been molested or fondled, and that have sexual disorders or sexual addiction. So we do see the prevalence. This is a United States study. So we do see the prevalence in how that that kind of effects on childhood. The sexual exposure can affect your sexual addictions and infect your sexual disorders, and affect your sexual addictions to sex as a result of those childhood experiences. So I want to just get you to understand that it is very relevant that if those men, if 9 to 16% have been molested, they have a sexual disorder or a sexual addiction, is relative to your childhood effects of what childhood trauma that you as a young man or as a young woman experience. So it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that you've been exposed to something that has had some lasting effects, and some that has created some unhealthy behaviors and some thought patterns. And so my assignment from God is to help you understand and to help you get set free, if you want to be set free from sexual addictions and sexual perversions and sexual disorders. This suggests that the underlying factors contributing to the development of sexual addiction, such as impulsivity. We talked about you're very impulsive. You want to have it. It's obsessive compulsive tendencies, and they all have linked, believe it, ADHD with sexual disorders, according to the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, that they have linked ADHD with sexual addiction and sexual disorder. So it's important to understand that all of that's relative to who you are and how you developed into having this sex addiction. You're not a bad person. You're just a person struggling with some behaviors and some thoughts, and you just need some guidance and some understanding and some deliverance to help you, and some counseling to help you process through, so you can be whole and you can be healed and you can function, right? And so it is a sex disorder. When you have sexual addiction, it is classified as a therapeutic approach as a disorder. Classified, as I said, by the American Psychiatric Association. And I want to talk about that because from the mental health standpoint, as well as from the spiritual standpoint, we believe it's a spirit as well as it's a disorder. I mean, anything that, impulsivity to smoke, is an addiction, right? But I believe that, I tell people all the time, I used to smoke, and I believe that God can deliver you from anything and everything. And I believe with counseling and a support system that one can be set free if they want to be from anything, right? So, they have indicated that the DSM-5 has included a hypersexual disorder as a recognized condition. So understand this, that this is a sexual disorder. It is not Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you have a disorder. So just, if I don't know, if I hope that helps you at least to understand that part. That it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you have a disorder. All right. So the concern. So I wanted to talk about this too. How does the sex addicted individual feels? A person struggling with sexual addiction and sexual disorders experiences, because you're trying to hide the shame. And so if you're masturbating or you're watching pornography, excuse me, you have guilt and you have shame and you have remorse and you have all these feelings. But I want to help you understand that it's a sexual disorder, and it's deliverable, it's workable, and you can be healed and you can be whole and you can move on to a journey of healing and wholing if you have this sexual addiction or sexual disorder. The feelings can stem from someone being aware of the behaviors and the behaviors are impacting your daily life and how you function. And so that's when the guilt and the shame and the remorse comes in. For example, if you're a husband and you're watching pornography, you're in the bedroom watching pornography while your wife is in the bedroom at night. So there's a guilt and a remorse to that, because now you're unable to function sexually because you've already experienced a fantasy, and that has captivated and moves you to an intense impulsivity to fantasy, and of different people and different positions and different things, and the guilt and the shame can be overwhelming, and it can bring guilt to your life, and then you do self-blame and you regret that, and the regret can be difficult to break free from without proper support and intervention. And so it's understanding that it's not that you're a bad person. It just means that you have a sexual disorder and you have a sex addiction, and that the power of God, and the power of God, understanding. I'm an advocate of understanding, because without that getting understanding, I think once you understand what you have, what it is, then you can better deal with it. I mean, in putting a name to it, it's like calling it what it is. It's a sexual disorder and it's a sex addiction. And I talk about this, and I'm going to talk about a little bit from my book. In addiction to feeling shame and guilt, the sex addict may also feel a sense of hopelessness and powerlessness, because it is compulsivity. It does grab you, and it's compulsive. It's like an addiction to alcohol or drugs. It's a psychological. It just craves you, and it just calls you, and you don't, and it takes over your life. It really, any kind of addiction takes total control of your life, and you start missing work, and you start being on the internet longer than you had been, and you lose track of time, and then you start operating in unhealthy sexual manners by seeking sex through illicit sex, through through prostitution or same-sex gender relationships, to fulfill the fantasies that have been developed in your mind and that you've seen through your eye gates and ear gates, and so we have these imprints when we see these things in our mind, and we want to fulfill them because they look, but there's such it's called risky behavior, in that, but that can bring hopelessness as well as powerlessness over the addiction behavior, because it is a behavior. The sex disorder, the sex addiction, is a behavior, and it's a thought pattern as well. So, and this can be manifested in a belief that you are unable to control the impulsive or make positive change in your life, and it is a compulsion, and without support and without understanding and without therapy, the compulsion and deliverance, and the support, you won't be able to control it. Have you been able to control it so far? I mean, it's no, right? The individual may feel trapped in the cycle of addiction unless you're able to see and envision of your future free from destructive patterns and takes. So you got to see yourself free, right? Before you even get free, I talk about visualization. You have to visualize yourself being free of whatever it is, whether it's a drugs addiction, sexual disorders. You have to see yourself free of that. All right. Alongside the emotions, you may struggle with people struggle with sex addictions, also experience symptoms of depression and loneliness because it's a secret that you're keeping, and unless you're sharing with other people that you're engaged in, you're in this alone. If you're doing pornography, you're by yourself with looking at people on a screen that you don't know, and and I don't know, wishing you were there, wishing they were here, and so that can bring depression because you're trying to have something that you're unable to fulfill if this is a fantasy. Um, the isolation can often accompany addictions, can be exacerbating feelings of sadness and despair because you're alone with these thoughts in your own mind that I'm addicted to pornography, I'm addicted to behaviors that are ungodly, that are unhealthy, that are, not healthy, and that are not. I'm cheating on my spouse. I'm acting, unseemly, and I feel guilty, and I feel sad, and I feel unhappy because I know I should not be doing this, and so that's when the guilt and the shame comes in because you know it's wrong and you feel it's wrong, and you know it's not appropriate if you're married to be having these kind of sexual outside experiences, and you're married or you're in a committed situation with your husband or wife. Unfortunately, these in severe cases, this isolation, this loneliness, unfortunately, can lead to suicide. I encourage people to call the suicide hotline if you are thinking 1-800. I think it's 1-800-833-suicide. If you are thinking of, if you're having struggles with that, or you can set up a counseling session with me, and Zoom or whatever method you'd like to have, so we can help you process through. But in severe cases, the overwhelming emotions can lead to thoughts of suicide because you feel so ashamed. But you're not alone. You're not alone. There's a support system that can help you through the sex addiction, and you could be set free if you want to be. And it's up to you to make your decision. Let a man be persuaded in his own mind. If you're persuaded in your own mind that you want to be free, that God can help you be free, and God can give you the strength and the tenacity and the will and the support to help you be free of sex addictions and get the therapy and the counseling to be free of the disorder. What are some signs and symptoms of sexual addictions and hypersexual activity, sexual hypersexuality? They can manifest in various ways. One of them is you find yourself preoccupied with sexual thoughts and fantasies. You're always fantasizing about some man, some woman, some group of people that are engaging in some kind of orgy situation. So you're often thinking of those things. You're spending more time than your work allows, allotments to go, engaging in sexual behaviors, whether it's risky behaviors, trying to hide from your spouse, trying to hide from your husband, hide from your wife, whatever, sexual disorders or sexual addictions you might be encountering. And that it's a lot of stress to try to hide this stuff. It's a lot of stress. So it can involve masturbation and viewing pornography regularly, or even planning sexual activities excessively to fulfill the urges, because remember, sexual addictions have a compulsivity to it. Hypersexual individuals may also seek sexual services to phone sex, paying for sexual encounters, being on the internet, having someone, having a Skype or some kind of a web media that you can encounter some kind of sexual encounter to satisfy some sexual desires. And these are all relative and really categorized as hypersexuality, as well as sexual disorders and as sex addictions. The behavior escalates. Those who struggle with them, we indicated, could struggle with risky behaviors and activities, and that can include combining substance abuse. Often we find that when there's sexual addiction, we also find that there is a compulsive a substance abuse addiction to them, whether you're doing a line of cocaine to help to make you feel, very ready to go and hyper and motivated to engage in a wild escapade of sexual gratifications, or alcohol or drinking to make you feel ready to engage in this sexual experience that you're going to engage, not understanding that if you have a depression and a mental health disorder, that drinking is, if you're already depressed, and drinking is only, it will make you more depressed, because alcohol is a depressant and it depresses your central nervous system, and so you're going to be more depressed if you're already depressed, and mixing a substance with sex addiction. So it extends beyond the person's life, and impacts various aspects. Various aspects as well as your well-being. For example, persistent engaging in risky sexual behaviors can lead to, or unfaithfulness in a marriage can lead to encountering sexual diseases, or also, a divorce, or somebody getting pregnant, or something, because it's risky. Incarceration, a raid, and these things, and don't think it can happen, because it can, right? Someone telling that you've engaged in some sexual risky behaviors, and you've broken off the relationship, and the other person is not ready to end the relationship, but you've come to the place of healing and wholeness, and you want to discontinue, but unfortunately that person is not willing to discontinue. So now you have a problem, because now they're going to create a problem for you, because they're not ready to relinquish you and let you be whole and let you be well. So that will be something else you'll need to contend with if you're working on a journey to feeling freedom from sexual addictions and sexual disorders. Also, this risky behavior can cause financial troubles. You're investing in money, you're traveling, you're paying for hotels, you're paying for things, or for other people. It's health issues, emotional distress can be caused by these things. So individuals struggling with sex addictions may find it challenging to control their behavior. So it's important to understand that despite facing the adverse outcome, the compulsivity drives you. So you're not thinking about the outcomes, because it's a compulsion, and so you just take the risk, and then you just deal with the consequences. Unfortunately, you're sad as a result of the consequences, okay? But you take the risk. Excuse me. Also, with relationships issues, that's one of the major complications of sex addictions or hypersexuality. It does do a strain on your marriage and your relationship. Constantly engaging in sexual behaviors and prioritizing all the aspects of your life, your family, your wife, your responsibilities, your children, and trying to hide it on your telephone, and trying to erase it from your text messages, and trying to delete emails, and and all of these things, and it develops. This can cause an emotional distance between you and your wife, or your spouse, or your person in a relationship, and it builds lack of trust and feelings of betrayal, which can ultimately lead to a breakdown in relationship, a divorce, a separation, unless there is counseling to give intervention to change some behaviors and some thought patterns. So it's important to understand that emotional and mental health, sexual addictions can have a significant impact on a person's individual's emotions and their mental well-being. The constant pursuit of sexual gratifications, as I said, indicates to low self-esteem as well as guilt and shame. Because the person feels that they've lost control of their behavior, and you have, because of the compulsiveness of the addiction. It's controlling you. You are not controlling it. Trust me, you're not controlling it. It is controlling you, and it is consuming you. All right. So, and it makes it difficult, and also the secrecy and the shame associated with sex addiction can isolate the individual, making it difficult for them to seek help and support, because it's shame, and you feel guilty, and you feel alone, and you feel isolated. And when you don't feel you can find the support, you either feel worse than the emotional. You feel worse because in the emotional state because you feel isolated. But here we're at this ministry, and this is the ministry I started, Set Free. If you want to be, my commitment and my assignment to God is to help you, to help you process and get through, and get delivered and get healed and become whole of sexual addiction and sexual disorders, sex disorders. There are legal consequences as well that can erupt from being in the wrong place at the wrong time and thinking it's a lady of the evening or a prostitute, and it turns out to be the undercover police agent who's, and not the person you thought it was. Now you have consequences, and now you got to call your wife, and I got to tell your wife why you in jail. Yeah, it can be problematic, or why you were at the party you shouldn't have been, or why you were at this person's house and something happened. And so issues can confound the negative impact on an individual's life, leading to potential imprisonment, loss of your job, loss of your ministry, loss of your wife, loss of your family, loss of respect for the community, a loss, of your self-respect. It has so many negative consequences to this sexual addiction and sexual disorders. Social isolation. Individuals who feel they're struggling with sex addictions may find themselves withdrawing from social activities because they're so compulsive and engaged in performing sexual activities or isolate themselves from family and friends because of the shame and the guilt, right? And so, on the inside, you're putting on a great face on the outside, but on the inside, you're just not doing well, right? Because you understand that you're struggling with something and you feel like you're isolated, but you can be set free if you want to be. You can be, and I will continue to say that because I believe that the social isolation can further contribute to feelings of loneliness. It can have also a negative impact on your self-identity, where you feel bad about yourself and you feel bad about what you did, and you feel guilty about cheating on your spouse, and betraying your family and betraying God, and all of that can have a negative impact on you, right? Relationships, one of the major complications of sexual addiction, as I said, is a constant strain on your relationships, financial problems as well, legal consequences as well, negative impact on your thing. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the types of sexual dysfunctions that they are. The sexual desire disorder, or orgasmic disorder, sexual arousal disorder, sexual pain disorder, gender identity disorder. These are all sexual disorders that are in the DSM-5 that are a part of the American Psychiatric Association. So these are actual disorders that accompany sexual addiction. Paraphilias are present and recurrent sexual interest. And I want to give definition to help you understand. If you're experiencing this, I want you to know what you're experiencing so you'll know how to work on the process of being healed in that. Paraphilias, they are recurrent sexual interest, urges, and fantasies to mark intensity involving objects, activities, or even stimulation situations that are typically unnatural or atypical in nature, right? Forturism disorder is a rare and poorly researched part of paraphernalia, and it involves touching or rubbing one's genitalia against another person, non-consensual individuals in a sexual manner to attain gratification. Fetishes are a persistent, repetitive use of dependency or non-living objects, such as undergarments or high-heel shoes, or high performance focuses on body parts, most often non-genitalia fetishes that they're called. Pedophilia. Pedophilia are ongoing sexual attractions to prepubertal children. It is a paraphilia, a condition which a person's sexual arousal and gratification depends upon objects, activities, or either situations that are atypical, unnatural. Pedophilia is defined as the intensity of sexual arousing and fantasy urges and behaviors with children. All right. Uh, Pedophilia are most often are more often men and can be attracted to either of both sexes. Um, Sexual masochism. Sexual masochism is a mental health related issue where the person is sexually aroused by experiencing pain or humiliation and has strong urges. This would be involved in where you're doing pain, where you're spanking someone and humiliating them and talking to them in different ways that are inappropriate, really. But out of those, you're experiencing some type of sexual arousal from this humiliation that you are experiencing from this person. Sexual sadism is a sexual sadism disorder, is a mental health related issue where the person is sexually aroused by inflicting physical or emotional pain on another person. You find that when you're doing a sexual sadism, that the harm, whatever you're doing, is encouraging some kind of sexual arousal because you're inflicting pain. People with this disorder may participate in activities and put other people at risk of physical harm. This could be handcuffs and handcuffing people to experience some type of sexual gratification. These are all sexual disorders. Transvestite fetishes is having sexual desires or erotic interests in cross-dressing. It differs from cross-dressing for entertainment purposes. It does not involve it. That do not involve sexual arousement, and it's categorized as a paraphilia. Voyeurism is an activity of getting pleasure from secretly watching other people, sexual situations, or more generally watching other people in their private lives. Okay, all of these are considered sexual disorders, and they're all considered classified as hypersexuality and mental health disorders. Okay, so in my book I talk about page 113, and you can get this book if you don't have it, about the different kinds of sexual disorders. And so understand this, that I've talked to you about, that the root cause of and your thought life. Understand this, that when you're working on your journey to wholeness, there is a process that has to take place in your mind, in your thought life as well. You have to work on thinking new thoughts and investing in new material and new information, because now you're working on replacing those thoughts with positive things and things that are more healthy and more beneficial for you and your life and your family. And so that's how you eradicate those negative thoughts, by replacing them and reframing the thought and reframing the story and rewriting the story. I really like rewriting the story of what you want. Rewrite the story. Visualize the healing and the journey to healing, and rewrite the story. Rewrite what you want to your life to look like. Okay. Alrighty, and so all right. Did I put that over here? When I talk about this sexual disorders in my book, I talk about them in relationships, and how that these kinds of sexual disorders, please understand, they can affect your relationship. It can be problematic for you, right? And so in relationships, I mean, I think, sex is a biological function, and you can't control that. But when it becomes excessive, and then when you have sexual addictions and sexual disorders, now it's time for some counseling and some therapy, and to get some healing and some support to help you process what's going on, so you can become healthy. All right, and the Bible talks about the bed is undefiled, and I'm a Christian and a pastor, but I also use spiritual principles to help us understand. The Bible talks about the bed is undefiled. It's a place where couples can share their desires, but no one should do anything in a room that the other person doesn't agree to. It's something that you both should agree to as a couple, or whatever you're designed to do. If a person is not into anal sex or same sex, or menage a trois, or what they call it, they're not into swinging, these things, and that's not something that should be incorporated in your relationship, because it'll violate that person's trust. So so it's but studies have shown too that there's an increased use of Christians that are engaging in pornography, that are becoming addicted to pornography, and addicted to same-sex relations from a Christian perspective, and it's just not the healthiest. These addictions can be problematic in your spiritual life, your marriage life, your business life, because they're compulsive, and they drive you, and they cause you to want to act risky in your behavior. So understand that honest and open dialogue with your Pacific partner can help you to get some therapy and some counseling, and to help you improve a healthy and have a healthy a sexual relation. There's either sexual healthy or unhealthy. Unhealthy would be the sexual addictions and sexual disorders. Healthy would be you and your partner working, towards what you agree to that is appropriate for you in your marriage and in your relationships. But there are intimacy enhancements that I talk about in the books to improve a relationship. It's step-by-step instructions. We talk about that. So it's important to understand that your relationship can be improved, and you can become very healthy by improving your own, by improving your life and your relationship, and getting some therapy. So I think therapy helps. I know that prayer helps. I believe someone praying for you can help. I believe getting information can help. I believe that having a made-up mind to make a decision that you want a better life and writing your own story can help. Journaling your situation on your journey, finding someone to support you, and getting some resource information can help you in your sex addiction, as well as in your, on the journey to healing in your sexual addictions and sexual disorders. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but you got to start. And the way you start is you started today. You started today by watching this video, believe it or not. You started today. And so congratulations to you. All right. I'm Dr. Reba. So if I was from Set Free, if you want to be ministries out of Florida, if we can help you in your process of your deliverance and your getting free of the sexual bondage and sexual addictions, we will be more than happy to render what God has given us in our gifts, talents, and ability to help you on the journey to healing and on the journey to wholeness. I'm Dr. Reba.